In one of your articles, you wrote that it is your biggest wish that education moves away from teaching a curriculum where facts need to be memorized and regurgitated for assessment purposes. But until that happens, you feel it is important that students are helped improve their memory skills if they are going to feel successful. What are you proposing here, and how is this possible?
Yeah, if we're going to assess students on their level of knowledge and understanding on any given subject, then we have to teach them what it is they need to know. Some teachers feel that they need to make lessons more novel and exciting, which is great. I would agree with that. But often the students are put at a massive disadvantage because they haven't covered some of the curriculum, because all that extra exciting stuff takes time. And it means that some teachers are not completing the curriculum, which means that some of the questions in an exam will not look familiar to the students. They'll come out of exam saying, we didn't cover that, we didn't do that. And you'll often be able to trace that back to a teacher who's been great at trying to make things interesting for them, but hasn't actually got through teaching them everything they need to know. And I know that means teaching to the test, and I know how horrible that sounds, and I wish it wasn't that way, but I feel that teachers shouldn't be put in that position in the first place. But if we're going to insist on exams, then we need to cover the curriculum that we need. And the difference then is how we do that. We need to find those novel ways of introducing the curriculum and doing it in ways that arouse their curiosity and allow the students' minds to play around with the ideas that come up for them. It's this idea again of having some kind of experience. So we stick to the curriculum. That is unfortunately essential, that we give them the curriculum, but it's the way that we do it. We have to allow them to find out the information, and we have to set up an experience that allows them to do that. Traditional teaching is not conducive to learning. We already established earlier on that being shown or told something doesn't create strong memory traces. So, you know, a teacher could be really enthusiastic about their subject and tell and show loads of information, but it's not going in. The students may find it fascinating, but it's not going to stick. They're not going to be able to remember it at a future date because the memory traces aren't strong enough. And sitting still doesn't help either, unfortunately. We tend to make them sit still, sit in rows, be quiet, and none of that is conducive to learning. Movement's actually essential to effective learning. The more of your body that's involved, the more you're likely to remember. So teachers need to plan lessons in a way that students can take part in activities that lead them to what we need them to know. So I'll give you an example of that. Questions play an important part in setting this up. I used to use, for instance, before a lesson on genetics, when they came into the room, there was a big notice on the board that said, "Are you human? Are you sure? How do you know that? Aliens welcome." And that was their introduction to the lesson. And of course, they would come in and see what was on the board and start talking to each other about, what do you mean? How are we human? How do we know we're human? Of course we're human. And I would say, oh, yeah, but are you sure? How could you prove to me that you're human? And it was so that they were alert to the fact during the lesson that they would find out that it's the fact we have 46 chromosomes that makes us human. But I wanted them to find that out for themselves so that the memory of it would stick much more strongly than just me writing on the board that fact and them copying it. Learning to remember, which is what we need them to do, needs that arousal of curiosity and the chance to engage with an experience, but also to learn directly from making mistakes while experimenting. Because again, the brain is designed to learn from mistakes. We try something, we get it wrong, that information is fed back to the brain so that it can start it makes an adjustment. So we try again, that's not right, so it makes another adjustment, and that way it leads us to the right answer or the correct process or whatever it is we're trying to learn. And it's that experimenting that leads again to those strong memory traces that are more memorable at a later date. What I did find when I started introducing all this in my classroom is that to start with, you'll get, oh, just tell us, miss, because they're not used to reasoning stuff out. They're kind of used to being spoon-fed information. When you first try and persuade them to think for themselves, they don't want to know. But if you keep going, they will get there. And that's one of the things that I include in the learner success pathway that I was telling you about before, but for this very reason that memory has become important because of exams, is that I do an activity with students around all the reasons why we might forget, what it is that makes it difficult to remember. And they do an activity including lots of different reasons, and then they work out which of those reasons applies more to them. And then we take each of those reasons and we work out a solution for each of those reasons that will enable them to change that and improve their memory.
Too often, Liz, we teach students what to think and not how to think. You've mentioned this. What are the overall benefits of metacognition?
There are loads of them. The first one is improved mental health. I mean, schools are crying out for the opportunity to improve the mental health of students at the moment. And this is one way of doing it, because the reason that we tend to lose mental health is when we start feeling out of control, or like we're losing control over what happens to us. So by teaching youngsters how to think in a metacognitive way, we're putting them back in control of what's happening to them. So it automatically improves mental health. Another thing, of course, is personal growth, because by thinking metacognitively, they are expanding their minds. There's physical growth in their minds and also a personal growth that goes alongside that. They're also learning to take responsibility for themselves, which means that they're becoming more independent. And that independence is not just about being independent as a person, but being independent as a learner, which is kind of where the focus is for me. And then they're also able to make more academic progress, because they are learning how to analyze their own processes and how to make progress, and they're setting themselves targets on what it is they want to do and where they want to be. So they will make academic progress, but also they're going to make wise decisions, because we said it's part of the decision-making process. So someone who's able to use metacognition will make wiser decisions. And that in turn will lead to a more successful adult life, because they'll make decisions that lead to where they want to be in life and where they're looking to achieve, and they'll get there far more likely to get there and achieve what it is they want if they have made the decisions that will enable them to get there. So metacognition leads to a successful adult life. So I would say that being able to think metacognitively is a vital life skill, and that we should be teaching it to every child and making sure that those children who don't yet have it, which is quite a lot, are given the opportunity to develop metacognition to help them both in school and later on in life as well.
I would like to wrap up our discussion by asking you to explain your book in further detail, titled The A to Z of Supporting Learner Achievement, Helping Parents, Carers and Teachers Make a Difference to Success in School. I've read through it, in fact, and it's very, very interesting. And this can be found on your website, lizkeable.com. I very much liked the structure of the book, in fact, and the way you presented the information. Can you explain a little bit further?
Yeah, they actually started as a series of LinkedIn posts. I was trying to support parents and carers and teachers and support staff to start seeing things from a student's perspective. I wanted to try and help them with that. I've always been, even when I was teaching, I was an advocate for the learner, and I wanted other people to have that same perspective. So it also gave me an opportunity to share a few of the stories about the successes that I've seen during my career as a result of focusing on the development of metacognition. I think there's almost one story for each letter of the alphabet, just to illustrate the point under each letter. It was written before I was openly using the word metacognition, I shied away from it for a while because I thought each time I use the word, I'm going to have to explain what I'm talking about. So I didn't use it for a long time. So when that was written, you'll find metacognition under the letter M, but the whole book is actually referencing how learners can be supported to develop metacognition. And keep in mind, it was written for parents and carers and for teachers and support staff. So anybody will find it helpful. And as you said, it's now a free download at lizkeable.com because of that passion that I have for everybody starting to advocate on behalf of the learner. And I know that parents particularly are often not sure how to support their child's education because they feel that they're not familiar with the curriculum, they're not familiar with modern teaching methods, but they don't need to be. There's a lot that parents can do to help develop metacognition in children and young people if they haven't had that kind of ways of helping when the children were younger. It's not too late to start for young people as well. You can actually make a difference even at a later age. So there's a lot that parents can do so that they help their children have the skills they need to engage more effectively with the education system. On my website, I created the idea of a triangle of support around the child. So that there's parents and carers in one corner, school leadership in another, and teachers and support staff in the other. And I thought if we're all working towards the same thing, then the students will be protected and helped to develop metacognition. But in the end, I decided to separate out support staff and teachers because they have two very different roles. The teacher's role is to create the right atmosphere in the classroom, to create the right environment in which students can have those experiences and learn and be supported in their learning through the knowledge of the teacher. But the support staff, their role in developing metacognition is the way in which they communicate with learners and the way that they support them. So I felt that they needed different kinds of help and different perspectives. So I separated those two groups out, which means that my triangle is now a square. And it means I've got parents and carers in one corner, school leadership in another, teachers in another, and support staff in another. And having done that, it gave me the opportunity to use the term be in their corner. So whoever we are on whichever corner we're in, that we can be in the corner of learners by supporting them to develop metacognition. And that's why I provide webinars, workshops, training courses and coaching for all those groups of people. And my main offer is to support a whole school approach to developing metacognition, which encapsulates everything that we've been talking about, to help schools to not to get lost in all those differences that we were talking about earlier, but to have students who are ready to think metacognitively. And if anyone wants to chat to me about that, then they can email me at success@lizkeable.com. Or visit the website, and I'm also on LinkedIn. So I'm happy to have conversations with people if they want to talk to me about my favourite subject of metacognition in practice.
In fact, we got talking, Liz, through LinkedIn, in fact.
Yeah.
We had the science of teaching and learning in common. So that's how we got talking. I'd like to thank you, Liz, for your time today in discussing these various strategies in metacognition, which will be definitely helpful and beneficial for both educators and parents alike. And I thank you for being here today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.